So you are now done with your embossing part of your mandala and you are now ready to fill. So before we fill our mandala with some beeswax, you need to take some methylated spirits and then clean the total area on the inside that you're going to fill with beeswax. You need to make sure that this is totally clean and there's no lubricant left behind, otherwise your filler won't adhere to your pewter. So I'm filling with a glass dropper. This is a 10 ml glass dropper, or 1 ml, sorry, it's a 1 ml glass dropper. I do like using glass with the beeswax as the glass heats up and it keeps the beeswax warmer on the inside. With the plastic droppers, I find that my beeswax, he loses the temperature too quickly and gets stuck on the inside very quickly. So for the mandala, it is very high. You need to support your sides with some extra cloth or cotton wool or felt or material so that when you add the beeswax, the sides doesn't fall down. So you need some extra support on the higher sides. So like the corners and the edges here, these are very high. This is my lowest part. So this is lying right on top of my table. And then the sides here are supported with the material. So we're going to start in the center of our mandala and we're going to start filling it very slowly, a little bit at a time. You don't want to go too quickly. If you go too quickly, your pewter can warp in different directions because of the beeswax cooling down in one big piece. You also don't want your beeswax to be very hot. You want to heat it up at a slow heat or a medium heat. If I do my beeswax on the stove, I would heat it up on a low setting like a number 2 and then eventually dial it down to a 1, so it just keeps it warm. I'm using currently a Pro Wax 100 waxing pot that the ladies use for the heating up the cosmetic wax. That keeps my beeswax at the perfect temperature and it switches on and off to regulate the temperature. So let's start. I've now already cleaned this mandala, so I can immediately start with the filling. So I put my dropper in my wax and I heat it up a bit before I start pouring the wax into the mandala. So I'm heating up the glass part of the dripper and I've got about 1 ml of beeswax in here, and it's just a matter of letting it slide into your area. So I've done the central area now, and now I'm going to move on to the flower, and I'm adding a very thin layer of beeswax. I'm not adding a thick layer, it's a very thin layer, and I'm just slowly filling it in. A little bit at a time. And I want to go slowly so that my pewter heats up evenly and the temperature isn't too high, because otherwise it will warp. So I'm doing this in a very slow and precise motion. And I'm not going to be worried about leveling it out at the moment. At the moment, all I want to do is I want to get one thin layer of beeswax on the total pewter area. This is also why I actually do like the smaller dropper, because it stops me from adding too much. So before I'm going to continue with the next one, I'm going to let this set for a while. Just let it dry. And then I'm going to continue one layer up. So I'm not going to fill this up now. I'm going to fill it up later. I'm just adding one thin layer of wax to the overall pewter. It won't be level yet. We'll do the leveling in the last step. I'm working around in a circle to keep the weight of the wax evenly distributed instead of doing one piece at a time. So I'm working around in circles, adding just a little bit of wax at the moment. Okay, so I've now done my first layer of beeswax. I've covered basically the whole surface, and as you can see, it's still not filled fully. So now I'm going to again, once everything is set, start in the center and then do another layer and start building up the layers so that I have the mandala fully filled in one smooth, even layer. So again, I'm using a little bit at a time, and I'm starting from the center again, and I'm just working it out. So once your beeswax is set and it's hard, you can remove all of the excess support, extra support, and we can now turn our pewter upside down again so that we can see how it came out. Okay, so that is nice. No dents formed in my pewter. I can just even out the edges, and you are basically now ready to do your cutting work. So just before I do the cutting work, I like to just trace some of the outlines just to define the areas again. So using my metal ball tool, the same 0.5 metal ball tool, I just retrace some of the edges just before the beeswax is completely rock hard. As you can see, it just creates this little defined edge. And I don't do this on all of the lines, I just do it on the main lines that I want to highlight a bit better. And once you're done with this, you are now ready to patina and to polish your pewter.